Hey, we're talking about evil geekery. Up next on Geek Out SA. Do not attempt to adjust your YouTube video. We control the stream. And welcome back to Geek Out SA. It's Friday and we're having fun. I blew Stuart's ear out right now. His eardrum. It's gone. It's done. He can't hear us anymore.
He didn't want to hear us anyway.
But welcome back. Welcome back. We're here. And we're going to be talking about evil geekery.
Because we're so evil.
Because we're evil. And because we
Dr. Evil.
do all these things and play D&D and read comic books and watch the Smurfs and we're of the devil.
I mean, just recently my mom was really, really trying to convince me to stop watching Lucifer. That upset her quite a bit. So I've done a lot of things over the past few years that has really upset my religious family.
Yeah, we have Lady Destiny Productions. She says, hi,
Hey,
Destiny.
how's it going?
Story Stalker, the Nightwing. Heyo.
Nice.
Heyo, how's it going?
So I guess a little backstory first before we get into this.
So, and a lot of this happened during our kid time.
Did a lot of it happen?
In the 80s.
And a lot of it too because of, I think, because we're in the Bible Belt, and so we felt it maybe a little bit more than some other people would have. But just recently, had a friend who reached out and said, hey, you know, my spouse and I are divorced. You know, we have a child together that we share. Mm-hmm. You know, we used to do all these things together, but now that we're divorced, my spouse has become really religious and has told our child that playing role-playing games means you worship the devil, that reading comic books puts evil into your heart and makes you want to hurt people, that playing video games makes you violent and evil, and it's against the Bible. Right. And so when the child goes over to the other parent's house, they begin crying because that's the parent's world, right? If a kid had to come over to our house and heard that kind of stuff with our arcade machine and all of our video games, we have comic books everywhere and all of this stuff. Yeah, I mean, it affects them, right? And and Vincent and I went through something similar to this because our sons have another biological father. Right. And when he remarried, again, we're down in the South and we're in the Bible Belt. And so when he remarried, not only was there a racist thing because they assumed because Vincent's Mexican that he's Catholic, which he's not, and they said because he's Catholic he's going to go to hell, but also because of all the things that we do, we were filling the kids with evil and they were going to go to hell. And so it very much confused our kids when they were, you know, in that, you know, 9, 10, 11-year-olds.
Even though that person used to play...
Right. Again, people
RPGs,
that used to
read
be...
comics, and all do... We also have Lennon's Kitchen. It says, hey, hi, guys.
Hey, Lennon.
Hey, Lennon. But yeah, no, a lot of this happened during our time. I don't know so much for the 70s because I was barely born in the 70s.
Well, way before us, obviously, comic books came about, right?
Right.
And comic books were a really big deal during the Great Depression, during the World Wars, because, of course, there wasn't really TV back then, so you had radio shows to listen to. You could read the newspaper, you could read a book, but when comic books came about as a new form of entertainment, here is like a moving picture, basically, right? Because you're seeing frame by frame the action happening, and you're seeing the words.
Back then, they didn't really have the superheroes like they do.
They had very few, but they had horror, and they had Western, and they had more of like war-type stories. Yeah. So it was superheroes, but it was more like spies and stuff, and they would like kick the Nazis' booties and stuff like that.
Propaganda.
Yeah, yes. Yes. And so, but there started to be, there were these female, divorced females, and they wore like capes and stuff, and they were like kicking the Nazis' booties, and then there was this one woman, and her name was apparently Lady Satan. And her husband was killed by the Nazis, so she was avenging him. And then all of the Tales from the Crypt kind of stuff came out, and there was like kind of sexualized drinking of blood with vampires, and there was werewolves and all of this kind of stuff. And so a famous psychiatrist at the time was working with delinquents, and he made this connection that delinquents read comics. Well, everybody was reading comics at the time.
Right.
At that time, it was like, because I did some research into this, because I knew about this comics code, but I didn't know some of the history, and so I wanted to go back and kind of research it. And so at the time, the comic book industry was making $72 million a year on nickel comics. So, okay, so a lot of people are reading comics at this time.
Right.
So are the delinquents reading comics? Yeah, everybody is, right? So it's kind of like in the 90s when they were like, oh, well, video games causes violence. No, violent people just happen to be playing a lot of video games because it's our form of entertainment at the time, right? So there's this really thin connection, right? So then he riles up the right people. He knows how to rile them up because he's a psychiatrist. So he starts riling up these people about families and family values and, oh, look, this has divorce in it. Then he comes out and says, because by this time he's riled people up, and now we're in like Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, that kind of era. So now he's saying, well, Wonder Woman comes from a land of just women, so she's a lesbian. And they're pushing forward the lesbian propaganda. And Batman and Robin are two men who spend all this time together, so they're secretly trying to convert men to be gay. So then he pushes that out there. Well, it freaks everybody out, right? And everybody starts losing their minds over all of this. So they actually had like Senate hearings and all kinds of stuff. And they had to come up with this code, and I don't have like the code memorized, but it was like no nudity, no divorce, no gays, the one that I thought was weird was like
the same thing with Bert and Ernie.
Yeah,
Sesame Street.
Just not too like in the late 90s, early 2000s, they did the same kind of thing. Yeah, so there's always this like looking for it to be evil, and it was like no werewolves, no vampires, no zombies. So it really kind of killed that Tales from the Crypt kind of horror genre completely. I mean, they could put the comics out without the code on there, but people just weren't buying them, and a lot of the publishers didn't want to publish them. So it kind of weeded out stuff and kind of killed it. And some of it was political, some of it was, but some of it was because there's always seems to be this like family drive behind these things. Like these things are going to tear down the family unit. That was a big thing back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, right, was the family unit.
Right.
And so the tearing down of the family. And then there couldn't
just
be...
get the whole family to play D&D together.
Well, there couldn't be anything in the comics that showed evil triumphing over good. And there could be nothing that bashed Christianity in the comics. So, it was just interesting because I didn't realize it had, because we grew up in the 80s, so we saw firsthand the whole D&D thing where everybody, like, again, we were worshiping the devil. Like, my mom really thought, like, in order to play D&D, she actually, like, in order for me to be able to talk about it in the house.
We used to get these stories at the churches where they're saying, oh, yes, this group that used to play D&D was out killing people because the persona came so much a part of them, they thought they were in the game. I was like, never made complete sense to me when I heard that.
Well, at the church where we were going to, like, they would tell us that, like, you know, people were converted from, like conversion therapy, right? Converted from playing D&D, and that they had, you know, put out the pentagram and their candles, and they full on believed Satan worshiping was happening when people were playing D&D, and I had already been playing on the down low, and so I was like, that's not really what we do. It's really kind of derpy if you look at it. Like, we're emulating Indiana Jones movies and stuff.
But a lot of what the D&D was about as well was, it was, of course, of like the swords and stuff, but also they thought it was witchcraft and all the magic.
Because of the magic users that were in there, yeah.
So, like, magic is, like, bad.
Oh. I mean, don't even get me started on how
magic.
Bad magic is. Because even before D&D, when I was a little kid, my mom, bless her soul, she watches every once in a while, but she's 70.
Philip
So
Spicer says Gary Gygax was my prophet.
yeah. Bless my mom's heart. She always tried to like let me have these, watch these little cartoons or stuff, or like have coloring books, or we didn't have too many toys, but stuff that I liked. So we got in trouble for the Care Bears. I won a Care Bear. I wanted a Care Bear so bad, and I won a Care Bear from a dentist's office. It was the first thing I had ever won, and it was like little heart bear. Lonely heart bear, or I don't remember what it was called now, because this was like 40 years ago. And I was so excited, and I loved that thing so much. Oh no, wait, we have to go back further. I have to tell y'all this story. So I'm like 3 or 4, when Snow White comes out. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm obsessed with the Evil Queen. I don't know why. I guess because she was like creepy or whatever.
When it reran.
When it reran, right? When I saw it.
Yeah.
Because when it came out, it was like in the 60s.
I was like,
no.
That would make you not, you weren't even alive then.
No. Which I guess my mom took me to the theater. They like re-released it or something. So I had this stuffed monkey, and I renamed him the Evil Queen. And he would go around and he would laugh maniacally. And he's the Evil Queen. So, and he did magic. And so I had to lose my monkey. They took my monkey away. And I had to go for an exorcism. Yes, I did. I did. Because of that. So then here come the Care Bears. And then I win the Care Bear, and then I'm like, I'm like enthralled with magic, right? Because you're a little kid, right? And it's like magic is so cool, right? So I'm shoving the belly out, and it's like, it does magic, rah! Because they used to do magic out of their little bellies, Their rainbow would come out or whatever, and they'd do their little friendship magic. Then by the time I'm 10, I'm in love with the Smurfs. Oh, and they're all magic, and Gargamel's magic, and Smurfette. I loved Smurfette. I had Smurfette everything, and Smurfette comes from magic. So then my family was mad at us for that, and there was all this big hoopla over it. It's just... So Vincent couldn't believe it when he and I got together, but I had never seen a movie that had witches in it. Because he liked that movie... Oh, God, what's that movie? It's
Craft?
The Craft. Like the movie The Craft. And he was like going on about the movie The Craft, and I'm like, I don't know.
Or even Charmed. When I used to watch the show Charmed, you were like,
no, I would leave.
Watch it.
It was so ingrained in me. I watch it now that but like the first iteration of Charmed, I didn't watch it with him. This one I've watched with him, or at least I'm in the room and I've seen it. But I mean, anything like that, anything, and a lot of the geeky stuff revolves around that. To this day, I've never played a magic user in a role-playing game. Not one time. I've never played a magic user in a role-playing game. Even though as an adult I know that it's not, but I've never had a magic user. I've always had a fighter, a thief. I've never, ever, ever had a magic user. Even, I don't know if you even noticed, and I just now realized this, has just dawned on me, when we play video games, like Gauntlet or something like that, I never use the magic users. Have you ever noticed that? I always use the fighters.
You do,
yeah. I won't use the magic users because it's been ingrained in me so much. And I never even realized that until we just had this show tonight.
Wow. Yeah, no, I used to play the magic users.
Yeah, you do all the time, but it makes me feel bad in my gut because every time I liked something like that. Oh, and then when our kids were with the Harry Potter stuff, oh man, I thought my family was going to lose their minds.
Yeah, I think Spicer mentions that Harry Potter and anything magic would also later get the wrath of the ultra-conservative crowd. People are always scared about what they're not familiar with. And that's a big thing, is people are scared of what they don't know.
Yeah.
And until they've been exposed to it and shown what it actually is, they're like, oh no, I'm hands off. I don't want to see any of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think, some of
them... Who knows what the ultra-conservative did with Star Wars? Because if you look at Star Wars,
right,
there's a theme in there. All of that, that's magic.
Oh, well, and we were supposed to boycott the which Superman movie was it? Where he's up there and he puts his arms out like that in the sky? Was it the Brandon Roth Superman? I can't remember.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it is.
It is, right?
Yeah.
And he's up there in the sky and he puts his arms out like this and kind of falls back. Oh, yep.
Well, they did that for effect because that's to show that he was like the sacrifice savior.
Right, right.
So he's like the Christ figure, and he goes like, they did that on purpose. So,
but anytime, and there's a lot of that types of things in geek culture.
Yeah.
And so growing up, you know, in the Bible Belt around the ultra conservatives, because my mom's family is ultra
Spicer
conservative.
says, do clerics count? And Ruby Tombstone just dropped.
Hey.
Yeah, hello all. I heard evil geek, and I had to pop in.
Yeah, definitely clerics count. I've never played a cleric. I've never played anything that has any kind of connection to magic use or anything. Which I wonder if that's what makes it hard for me to finish writing the role-playing game that I'm writing, because it's a paranormal, and so it's very. It's cultish. It's very cultish, and it would be considered very evil.
And that was a big thing back in the years. Oh, it's an occult. It's an occult. I was like, oh, they're Satanists out there, and they sacrifice little children. Mm-hmm. And they got you scared about it. And it was back in the day where they're like, oh yeah, like play records backwards, and you can hear all these backward masking stuff, and you're like, that's kind of creepy. And I would be there sitting in church, picking my legs off the ground from the pew, and that's why I mess with you all the time, because that used to freak me out. Because I felt like something was going to grab me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, even in a church, I was like, you really do something to a kid when you freak him out for no reason like that. Mm-hmm. And I understand that people like have their reasons and have their beliefs, but to kind of mess with your kid's head before they really understand what things are.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, really, because it messes with you so much. I mean, Vincent and I both also went to private religious schools when we were children too. So that was ingrained even in our lessons at school.
Here's the other thing that Spicer just brought up. I had friends' parents who thought the Monster Energy drink was also satanic, and because of the logo, how it's like 3 lines, and I was like, oh, well, that kind of looks like 3 sixes, so it's 666.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that before too.
Yeah. So it's like anything you want to do, you can associate with occultish stuff. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to, but that doesn't make it true.
Well, and the comics have come a long way from the 30s, 40s, and 50s when the code began, and there definitely are comics now that do cross the line into that occultish type stuff. I mean, the show Lucifer comes from the Lucifer comic. We have Constantine in the comics, right? So we do walk into these occult type things. You do see a lot more of like voodoo type stuff in there as well.
Right. Yeah, there was a lot of voodoo stuff that came up in the 80s, and they were like, oh, that's no, you can't do that. That, or if anybody had any type of like ESP or anything like that, I was like, oh no, that's evil. That's evil. Yeah.
And you weren't allowed to read it, watch it, play it, do anything with it, because you were allowing that evil to come into your temple, and it was breaking down your temple. And
they did some crazy stuff like burn records.
Oh yeah.
And books.
Yep.
I was like,
we do that now.
Oh yeah, we do it still. Yeah.
It's different reasons, but it's the same drive behind it. It's fear of the unknown.
Angel says Hellboy and Spawn. I was like, yeah, I mean, that's evil. What should Ghost Rider?
Yeah.
No. They explained Ghost Rider away in some of the very early, because he was still comic book code back then.
He was still comic book code.
Oh no, he didn't kill any real people. They were all demons.
But
and that's when it was like,
at face value, when they look at it, they see a fiery skull. That's evil.
Mm-hmm. Well, even anything that even though he killed demons, even anything that had the mention of demons my ultra conservative family. Like, you don't put that in your body, right? You don't read anything about it, even if it's like demon killing or anything like that. You're allowing
They were
it
like,
to
oh,
come
garbage
in.
in, garbage out. That's what I used to hear all the time.
Garbage in, garbage out. Yeah, yeah. And yet still, both of us had such a desire, you know, our imaginations went there. That was what we wanted. It's weird now that I think of it that I didn't go towards the magic user stuff, that I kind of like blocked that out for myself. And so I was able to still be within the geek worlds. And so I was still able to have that fantasy stuff and some of that sword yielding and stuff like that, because that wasn't necessarily frowned on. I mean, you had the Christian Crusades and stuff, right? So it wasn't like they frowned on battle.
Why didn't anybody come up with an awesome Christian role-playing game?
There you go, Vincent. That's your new thing.
I've been talking about that for years.
Yes.
I'm never going to do it.
I think now is a little late for it, but that's an awesome idea.
Yeah. People now might play it. I don't know, because I have been so
think
removed from the church in a while.
There's one that was on there that I've seen, but it wasn't very good.
Yeah.
You made a good one? It's like, oh, Jesus.
I mean, there are a lot of scandalous...
Jesus has the magic to turn water to wine.
Yikes.
What do you have to roll to make that happen?
Yeah. As soon as the Christians got a hold of that, they'd be burning you, buddy.
Oh, we're going to get some thumbs down now.
We're in trouble.
Now we're going to get even more views of hate.
I think it just boils down to fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like even today, some of the geeky stuff that I don't like my kids doing, it's not through me not liking the thing and saying it's evil. It's usually what they're actually doing with it.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the newest targets is going to be anime, because that's kind of newest on people's radar. And there are a lot of parents who feel like that leads to like an over-sexualization, and then the kids are out there, you know.
Well, just looking at Death Note. With the demons in there.
Yeah, but then you go...
And then, like, killing people by just writing it in a book.
That's old school anime, and now it's all...
Oh, the kids loved Death Note. I mean, every year I find a kid who's got a notebook, and it's on the front, and they've got other kids' names inside of it. It's not working for them, but they try.
That's when you pull up Wikipedia and say, see when this was published, it's really old.
But yeah, there's always going to be that fear. So, but I think as an adult and as someone who might be concerned about some of it, because we had 3 kids and we grew up and we had to decide, you know, what we thought was appropriate for our kids and what wasn't, which is everybody's right, and I'm okay with that. But I think that there always needs to be some conversation between this is how we behave in the real world, right? Mm-hmm. And then when we're reading comic books or watching movies or playing video games, because it's not like you Grand Theft Auto, you know, and you walk around and like smack a hoe and drag her into your car or whatever, you know. It's a game.
Well, you shouldn't.
You shouldn't.
You're telling me jumping on turtles and money popping out of their butt doesn't really happen?
Yeah, it doesn't really happen. You know, so, but with graphics and things becoming more and more realistic, I think people need to have those conversations with their kids and say, look, in the world, this is how
reality,
we behave.
This is fake.
Right, and this is how we behave as a community, a society of beings that lives in a community. This is how we behave. And because we don't like those human beings and they tick us off or whatever, then we come home to our video games and to our role-playing games, and then we can act like, you know, a big muscly dude or an aggressive dude or a magic user, or all the things that are in our imagination, and get those things out in the safety of our game. And then we come back to the real world where we're within this society, we're within this, you know, grouping of what our species does, and we behave accordingly. We need to have more conversations like that, and not say, oh, well, violence.
Yeah, parents need to talk to their kids, and because in the majority of the time, parents are not talking to kids.
No, and they want to bring it back and say, well, it's the video game's fault, or it's the comic's fault, or whatever.
But those are the same people that here have a iPad.
Right. You're 3 years old. Here's an iPad. Go be quiet. You know. So I don't think that I don't know that the things in themselves are inherently evil.
No.
Right.
I think it's that combined with the personality that consumes the product, the two things together can make people that are of a more evil nature or have bad thoughts or bad actions, that will push them more towards it because of their consuming it.
Right, and I could see that, right? If you already have a propensity to be that way, and then you see something and you want to emulate it, right? And you're like, oh, well, okay, that guy, like, you know, choked that guy out, you know, and yeah, oh, that's really cool. And then you're like, I could do that too. Yeah, but most of us, when we read that, that's not where we're going. I mean, you know, I read a lot of stuff over the years, and I don't like go around harming people. I actually do the opposite.
Yeah.
So.
Well, again, it's all your moral compass and how you interact with people and stuff like that. I think the big problem now is because we're so interconnected that you, as an individual, can go out and find anybody that can affirmative action anything that you want to believe, whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, in this culture of, because it has to do with like cancel culture. It's like one of the first things that kind of started the cancel culture, even though we didn't call it cancel culture back then.
Yeah, but because even back then.
But if you're going way, way back, like even like looking at the Beatles, I think, was it John Lennon said, oh, we're bigger than Jesus.
Right.
He said something like that, and then after that, they were like, oh, yeah, let's burn Beatles albums because they're evil.
Because they're evil.
They think they're bigger than
because
Jesus.
they put themselves above, yes. And there should be no false gods.
It was said out of context. It was, people read into it out of context, but because of that, oh, the Beatles became evil. And I was like, well, because there was a big backward masking thing on their song Number 9. And that one, it's like, and it really does sound like somebody's in a car accident saying, help me, and you hear, turn me on, dead man.
That's like, weird, yeah.
That's really weird.
Some of that's random because I know I used to play records backwards all the time, and you could hear stuff if you slowed it down and sped it up if you wanted to.
If you were looking for it,
If you're looking for it, you'll find it.
Yeah, so...
but with that stuff, they also had the... one of the guys on the Sgt. Pepper album that was the guy who kind of invented backward masking.
Oh, nice. Really?
And they had him on there. They had, was it Levine? Something Levine? He was like the high priest of the Satanic Church or something like that.
Oh, okay.
On the Sgt. Pepper album as well. But when it comes to it, it's just people. And them not understanding what it is. Because even if you look at the Church of Satan, if you look at what they teach and what they talk about, I mean, it's all of it's not horrible or bad. They don't go out and like kill kids and stuff like that, which we were led to believe.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Church of Satan, that was another show.
Anton LaVey.
Yeah.
Anton LaVey.
That was a show that I really struggled to watch with you, and I really, really enjoyed this show, but really struggled. Like, sometimes my stomach, like, turns into knots when we watch this show, and I'm like, I really shouldn't be here. Is Sabrina.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely really liked that show. The production quality was great. The actors in it were great.
It was just the stuff that they
flipped
around.
They just pushed some of that in there, and I was like, it's going to be so bad when I get there. I was like, but I really like this show. But it's still, like, there's so much in the geek culture. And so when I saw this friend, you know, what do I do? Because this is a culture that he loves, and this is his, part of his world. This is kind of who he is. And now it makes his child afraid, What can you do? I think when your child's really little, you have to tell your child that it's okay, and that if they feel uncomfortable with it, that, different people who love the Lord, because our friend loves the Lord too. He very much considers himself a Christian. And, I think you just have to tell your child, your mom loves the Lord and I love the Lord, and we just understand what the Lord is saying very differently. And so, I'm going to continue to do these things and love the Lord. And if it bothers you, we just won't do them when you're over here. And then maybe as they grow older, because as our kids got older, they do all this
like
stuff.
I see, like I see him go through with his kids or anything, and he's practicing magic and doing spells and drawing pentagrams on the ground. He's not doing anything like that.
No, they read comics and they dress up as comic characters and they watch Marvel movies and, it's not like that at all. It's not like he's like, writing blood messages on his child or something, it's none of that kind of stuff. And it's interesting because I was pushed away from it so much. There were times, rebellious times in my life where I would try, like, I got to admit, I've tried the Ouija board. I tried Bloody Mary. I tried real hard.
Yeah, that was supposed to be like super, super evil. Stay away because
and what happened?
You'll let
nothing.
You'll let
and you went back to your mom
demons
and went,
into your heart.
Nothing.
No, my friends and I, because we all came from this religious background, so we definitely, after we used the Ouija board, number one, we believed that it worked. Number two, we believed that it opened something up and something came through. My friend had this one of those velvet posters, because this, it's back in the 80s. So he has a velvet poster of a wild horse, okay? So then all of a sudden, I don't know what Kool-Aid we were drinking, but after we do the Ouija board, now, granted, he did move into the house where they did the exorcisms, where I had my exorcism done when I was little. So he was in the exorcism house, so maybe there were some things going on there. But after we did the Ouija board...
There's still ghosts in this house.
I think they follow me, but because of all of this, of the exorcism and the Ouija board. And so we do the Ouija board. Then a few days later, we swear to God, we can hear his grandma talking to us. She's been dead for a while. Then we swear we see the velvet horse picture moving, and then its teeth moved, and it no longer has teeth that look like horse teeth. It has human teeth and has human eyes. So then we decide, well, we've let some demon in. We don't know what we're doing. So we take the poster down and we go out in the middle of the night. We tried to make a pentagram kind of thing with candles. And then we were like, out Satan, out Satan, out Satan, or whatever. And we burned the poster.
Why would you do a pentagram?
I don't know. We were like 13. We're like 12 and 13.
Let's make the exact opposite.
And I don't know what we were doing.
Let's not hit it with a Jesus book or something. We'll make a pentagram because that will get rid of it.
I know, we probably should have rubbed a Bible on it or something. I don't know.
That's when the horse smiles a little bit more and says, yes. We have them now. We're making pentagrams.
We did not know what we were doing.
And that's a big thing.
That's the problem. Ignorance.
There's a big misconception about Wiccan because their symbol is the pentagram. But they say, oh, it's a pentagram, so it's evil. But the evil one is the inverted pentagram, which is called the goat star.
Yeah.
And Wiccans they're not evil like
some of them are.
Well, some of everybody is.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. There's some evil. There's some evil everybody, but as a general rule, no. I mean, there's some evil Christians.
That's not what they're supposed to be about.
That's not what they're supposed to be about. But just like
that's what Christians aren't supposed to be about.
There's always a few in every lot that take it to the extreme. And I think that's the problem. The extremes are the problem.
Just like politics.
Geek culture, religion.
I just feel like, and maybe just because I've been a part of geek culture, it feels like it gets hit harder. just seems like every movie that comes out, every comic that comes out, every game that comes out, it gets hit with something.
Well,
you know?
again, it could be because we're in the geek culture, so we look at that more.
Right.
If you're like in the sports culture, you look at what's happening there, they could think the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's probably everything.
I don't know. I think geeks get a bad rap.
I think, oh yeah, we do, I think.
Yeah.
But it's become a little bit more normalized.
I think a little bit more. Yeah.
Disney.
Oh, Disney is full on for Satan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Disney is full on for Satan. Satan and pedophiles, unfortunately. Yeah. That's
And Roy's head is cryogenically frozen underneath
that's right.
Sleeping Beauty's castle.
That's right.
He's going to come back and get us
He's
all.
going to come back and get us all. And make us worship Satan. Well, and now Disney has a hold of Marvel and Star Wars, so it's the trifecta of evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all coming down.
And The Simpsons.
Oh, and The Simpsons.
And
Oh,
The
dear
Simpsons.
God. The Simpsons are the worst.
When do you think they're going to get DC?
They won't. They'll get
It's already part of Warner Brothers.
They'll get Nickelodeon next. Nickelodeon or who owns James Bond now?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
One of the movies. Is it No, it's not Universal.
Paramount?
United Art? No,
No.
I have to look that up. That's what.
What's so it's just we're heading towards Demolition Man. That should be our next topic is which dystopian movie are we heading for? Everybody's rooting for The Postman right now, but I'm saying Demolition Man. Everything's going to be Taco Bell and Disney. And that's all we're going to have.
Taco Bell and Disney.
And we're going to be listening to commercials on the radio
You
and
would
jingles.
love that.
Actually, that would be cool.
I'd watch that.
I'd like to go back to that.
Armor hot dogs. I love
Ho,
Demolition.
ho, ho. Green,
Green
Giant.
I love Demolition Man. It's my favorite.
And I was like, oh, he was evil because he was a green giant and that was magical.
He was.
You can go to hell. Oh, Liz Claiborne.
They protested that too. I forgot
Liz
about that.
Claiborne, Satanist. I mean, there's a number of things that were just like, how do you know that? Oh, David Copperfield.
Oh, big time. There's
Magic.
no magic. There's no
like,
magic.
Chris Angel.
There's
I
no
was
magic
like-
shows. There's none of that. And Vincent loves magic. Vincent loves
Yes.
like Penn and Teller type stuff. Like David Copperfield, he loves magic. No,
Mm-hmm.
that's a no. That's a no.
Just
David
because
Copperfield
you're
obviously
not smart enough to understand what he's doing.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it evil.
It's not evil. It's just a trick.
It's just a trick.
He doesn't commune with Satan. He's just tricking you.
Now, when he brings out the fishes and the loaves and the wine.
Look, he's floating in the air. I was like, that's camera tricks.
It's a wire.
So yeah, I think again it's perspective. I think it's the unknown. So in order to get my mom comfortable with D&D, because I had been playing it on the down low for a while, but I wanted to be able to kind of like talk about it in my own home, right, and not be uncomfortable about what I was doing in my own home. And so one Halloween, we were finally too old.
Halloween.
I know.
You're allowed to have Halloween?
No, there were times when we weren't. We had to put out the banner of Jesus.
Oh,
And
we
the
had to
best of
go
things.
out, and then we could only dress up as Bible characters at the church.
Yeah. Oh, I've done all of those things. We won't
Yeah.
even talk about Halloween because you don't even want to know some of the stuff I've
They
had to go
ruined
through.
my Halloween.
But-
Save that for another
That's
episode.
another episode. But so my mom finally acquiesced, and she was like, "Okay, fine, you can play, but y'all have to come down here, and I have to watch to make sure that you're not worshiping Satan." And I think once she finally saw us play, she was like, "Oh, y'all are kind of dorks, right?"
And she turns it back. Hail Satan.
Hail Satan! Hail Satan! Mom, where are the black candles?
We don't actually say Hail Satan until we roll natural 20s. Nobody's done it yet.
And Ruby Tuesday says, and remember, evil spelled backward is live.
Live more.
Live your best self. Play evil games.
Live and use your imagination and
That's
enjoy
a
it.
Good segue to get out of here.
Yeah.
We're out.
But thanks for checking us out. If you haven't clicked on the subscribe button, please click on that subscribe button and click that notification bell so the next time we go live or put out a new video, you'll know. But thanks for checking us out. I'm Vince.
I'm Colleen, and that's Stuart.
Geek out, SA.
Bye.